Hi everyone, welcome to discussion two. These are some more panels exercises for doing group work exercises. So this is intended for you to do as groups. Since you're watching asynchronously, you can maybe first try it with your study group or your friends, or at least attempt it on your own before looking at the solutions. It can be really helpful to think about these things and push yourself to really learn pandas. Um, so these tasks are really complex, and they essentially try to combine different functionalities of pandas. Um, so we hope that you'll have a really nice learning experience. All right, so again, one more thing before we start. We are working with the baby names data set. So again, whenever you look at the data frame, you should always question what does each row represent? What's the granularity of this data set? So each row here is a unique combination of state, sex, year, and name. And the count is just the number of times that combination appears in general. Um, and so essentially, this combination occurs once in that data set, and so on. Cool. So let's go to task one. So in task one, you're asked to make this data frame over here where the name is index, and you want to have a column called mid, which is the earliest record of that name being used, max, which is the latest record of that name being used, and longevity, which is the difference between the two. Now, since you have to find the min and the max, you have to do two aggregations together. So let's start with the baby names data set. Now, the first question is, what do we group by? We group by name here too, so that we can find these aggregations. We group by name because that's what we want as our index, and our initial granularity is not the name, it's the unique combination of these four columns. So we group by name, and then we just aggregate by the min and the max. Now, what does that look like? Okay, this is working fine. Sorry, I think I was, okay. So actually, let's take only work in the year column. Okay, this is that much better. All right. So that's the first part of it. Let's assign that as a variable name. So min max names equal to that. Let's create the longevity column. So here, here this is simple subtraction. So min max names max minus min max names min, and now you have the longevity column. Let me just show you what it looks like right now. So you have the longevity column, but you want to sort it in terms of decreasing order, and you only want to display the first 10 names. To do that, you can just do sort values, and you just sort by the longevity column. Since the default sorting is ascending, you need to specify that it's descending. And you do that by saying ascending equals false, and you display the first 10 rows by using head. All right, so if you look at these data frames, they're the same, and that's the end of task one. Okay, so moving on to task two. So here you're asked to find what proportion of the names start with the vowel. So here you have to return a series where you have the year as the index and the proportion of different names that start with the vowel as the value. You're also given some hints that .starts with can be useful. That'll basically give you true if the string starts with that particular character or set of characters. And you can maybe make a function based on that and plug it into the add function. So before we put that in practice, let's define the function that we want to make. So let's call that prop ones, and this takes in a series. And then it returns. So first thing first, let's try to work on the starts with part of it. So we just want to verify. We just want to find which rows starts with the letters A, E, I, O, and U. And this will just give you ones and zeros or trues and falses. So if a certain name starts with A, you will treat that as a 1, and you can basically count the number of names that start with the wall, and then you can divide that by the total number of names. Or you can just take the NP.mean directly, and that should work out for you. So we can apply this by plugging into an aggregation function. So to aggregate, we first need to group. And as you can see, our index is a year, so we need to group by year. And then we need to apply the aggregation function to the name column. So we select the name column and we do .ag, and we just pass in the prop vals function. And that gives you, again, the same output as was requested. Okay, so moving on to task 3. Here you're asked to return a pandas series. And here your index should be the year, and your value should be the number of names given that year, whose count is less than 15. And all this is to study whether the names are becoming more unique over time or not. And this is kind of the trend we'll be working at. So first of all, we only want to work with those names where the count is less than 15. So let's filter our data set for that part. So baby names, and then here we we say that the count is less than 15. So this is the subset of the data frame that we're working with. And then we want the index to be the year, and then the values to be the number of names given that year. So if you want the index to be the year, then you want to group by year. And again, we select the name column, and then we want to have the number of names. So the number of names, you can just do a dot count, because that will be the number of names in a year. And yes, this should give you the same plot as was given earlier. Okay, so for task 4. So task 4 is asking us, so among the names that are very popular, how many different names are there across sex and year? So essentially, we have to return this data frame where a row is a year and a column is the sex, and then there's more information about how these entries can be filled. The first thing to notice is that here we're working with 2 different columns of the original data frame, which is the sex column over here and the year column over here. So a very natural data structure for this is the pivot table. So we can just start off by adding table. And as we know, the index would be the year, and the columns would be sex, and we need to assign values, and we also need to assign the add func. So in this case, we are trying to count the number of names, the number of unique popular names for that year, for that sex. So our values are just the name. And since we're just trying to find the number of names, we can just use add func equal to count. So that gives you partially right answer. Of course, we still haven't accounted for the fact that we only want to consider the popular names. So we can set that condition earlier before we even make the table. So we can do baby names, and then the count needs to be greater than 1,000. Yes, and that way you can get um, the result that you expect from above. And yes, so you can also fill in values in the last part of the question. Um, and in this part, what do you think is the most relevant number that we can substitute for f for the combination 1915 and f? So this NaN basically means that there is no popular names that satisfy the condition. So essentially, um, we can just say that we can just fill the Na values with zeros, and that will give you the more interpretable answer. All right, so that's the end of the group exercises. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.